Thank you for writing that song just for us and reminding us that we are in our right place at the right time doing exactly what it is that we're supposed to do. And there are no lost opportunities in life. You know, it says in the book of Joel, I will restore to you the year that the locust has eaten. And this means that if there's something in your life that you've regretted because you felt like you had an opportunity, a window of opportunity that you didn't take advantage of, that you've never lost anything, that there's always another opportunity that's going to come up. It'll be a different form, and it will be perhaps a different window of opportunity than you had in mind. That year that the locust has eaten will be restored to you in a form that's best appropriate and most needed by you. But this is part of being in this universal flow of life and this dance of life. And you are in the center of this dance of life. It's going on all around you. A good unitic named Carlos Santana, who attended many years at the Unity Church in Marin County, said, the world is round because we all get center stage. And it's all flowing around you. There's a study done, and this is really kind of remarkable, but it was a PhD educator, very high level, had done studies of what goes on in the playground in elementary schools, and they were filming the different playgrounds to just kind of do a statistical study of how kids play. And what they found, there seemed to be some kind of weird rhythm going on. Like on that part of the playground, something was going on, but somebody over here seemed to be doing something at the same rate. And as this individual did the study, I've got a copy of it, it blew me away. They found that they could actually put a certain beat of music, a certain rhythm of music, and watch the play go on in the playground, and people were actually dancing. The children were dancing naturally to the same rhythm, synchronistically, all over the playground. That on this side, they were doing something that was in the same rhythm as on this side, and that actually could be put to music. And this educator went around the country putting on seminars showing that there's an implicate order, a divine order that's expressing through the children and expressing through you and me, and is constantly going on. And we don't see it, we don't hear it, we're not aware of it. But, you know, open my eyes to see the divine order. Open my ears to hear the divine order. Let me be aware of it, and let me take advantage of the windows of opportunities as they come up. Now know this, you might miss a window of opportunity, but there's always going to be another one. What do you do when you didn't take advantage of a window of opportunity, and you look back on it and you go, oh, I wish I had. I wish I'd done that thing. You know, I had one of those windows of opportunity many, many years ago. Just before I went to ministerial school, about 5 months before, I was offered a position that was actually the same position that was in the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. You know, Happiness with a Y, about the guy who lived on the street with his kids, and then they put him into a stock brokerage thing. It was the same exact company, it was the same exact program, about 100 miles away. And I was guided so strongly to take that opportunity, and I didn't do it. I would have been flown to New York and trained and done all these things. And the reason why I told myself, my guidance was so strong to do it, I told myself, well, I'm going into ministerial school, and, you know, I hadn't been accepted yet, and I was accepted, but it was like, but about a year later, when I meditated on why I was supposed to do it, I would have avoided a lot of pitfalls in my life. But the beauty is, I learned through them anyway. I got to the other side of it anyway, and I was able to have other windows of opportunity that presented themselves later. So what do you do when you feel like you missed a window, or you did something perhaps that was pushing things when you weren't that aware? You forgive yourself. And I really want you to think about something in your life that you feel that you need to let go of, that you perhaps have been holding around, and forgive yourself for it. One method of forgiveness is the 7-step method. We've got it back there on the table outside of fellowship. Journal it out and forgive yourself. Let go of these things, because you can't dance encumbered with the past. I cannot dance encumbered with the past. Together? I cannot dance encumbered with the past. So I let go of the past and dance freely. Together? So I let go of the past and dance freely. And you are that child in the playground. You are that person in life. You are ready for your next window of opportunity. Yesterday, because Rosalie is at the Youth of Unity rally, Len and I asked Jason, what do you want to do? And he said he wanted to play miniature golf. So we found a place that was miniature golf. And one thing I found that was almost every hole in the miniature golf was about timing. Because there'd be something moving and you had to do it just right. And then if it go through, then you get a hole in one. And if not, well, then you get another opportunity. But you know, there's that divine timing and knowing when to hold them and when to fold them and when to walk away. Knowing when it is that time is so crucial to living your life in divine order. But either way, you're going to learn. The question is, are you going to learn the easier way or the not so easy way? Charles Fillmore said there are two ways we learn in life. One is through intuition, and the other is through hard experience. Or Carol Mace says it's between wisdom or woe. But either way we learn, and we start picking things up more and more and more. But how do you keep your vibration and your energy up enough to discern what is yours to do? To let these things come. Well, one of the things is that if you get into the vibration of it, these circumstances will come to you. You'll find them presenting themselves to you, and you will be in that perfect place. I remember when, many, many years ago, 30 years ago, the one time I ever surfed. I took a lesson in Waikiki Beach, and there was a guy, I said, we're going to learn to surf. I said, well, ask this guy. Well, it turned out to be a guy named Rabbit. I read later in a book he was the greatest surfing instructor in the world. But he was just hanging out on the beach. You give him $10, he'd teach you how to surf, because he just hung out on the beach. So there was Rabbit, and he thought I was pathetic. I got to tell you. And he was, you know, and I had somebody who was listening to him saying, you know, well, look at this guy. But, you know, because I would do this, he says, he looked like an Egyptian. You know? But one of the things that he was trying to tell me was, don't get ahead of yourself and don't fall too far behind. When the wave comes up, take advantage of it, get up, and then flow with it. And I had one ride, and that's all I needed, and I've never done it since. But the idea is, don't get too far ahead, don't get too far behind. Be in the flow, be in the now moment. You know, this is a thing that I was observing as I was looking in the gospel record about Jesus going into Jerusalem. You know how they were traveling all over, but they didn't go into Jerusalem. But he had two disciples who were doing opposite things in terms of giving him advice. Peter was saying, don't go to Jerusalem, never go to Jerusalem, we're staying out here. If you go to Jerusalem, they're gonna get you. And he had reason to say that. Judas, on the other hand, was saying, let's go to Jerusalem now, because he had a plan. And his plan was to set up a theocracy, he'd be the treasurer, and he'd be pretty cushy for him. So between the two of them, these are the two polar opposites of your personality and mine that's either saying, I'm going to live out of fear, I'm going to hold back, I'm going to be in my little square box, I'm not moving, I'm not budging, nothing's going to change, I'm not taking any chances. That's Peter. Or the other side that wants to force its will from an ego standpoint to get what it wants in order to get exactly what it thinks it wants on its own terms, and that's Judas. But there's another point of view, and that's Jesus' point of view. And it's the Christ within you, that spiritual nature within you knows, it's the only thing you can trust, to know when to hold them, when to fold them, to know when it's time. And when the time is right, Jesus said, okay, now let's go. We're going to make our move. You'll know what to do. You'll know when to make your move. You'll know when to hold them, when to fold them. You'll know, but you'll know because you know you know. But you've got to be open. You've got to be sensitive. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but one of the easiest is just to ask the question. Ask the question, what should I do in this situation? And then you'll know. I remember once when Lynn and I were dating, we were just starting to date for a while. We'd just been dating a few weeks or months, and I asked, what should I get her for a present? And I saw a diamond engagement ring. And the words, it's not too soon. Scared me to death. But I kept with it, so you can ask, okay, now let's flow with this. Let me feel this out. Let me see. And then you'll know, and then you'll be guided. And I did it, and it was exactly what we needed to do. There's so many reasons for it, but the divine flow. You want to get up on that surfboard and go in there. You want to be at the right time, not holding back out of fear, like Peter, or not trying to force your will, like Judas, but always relying on that higher self. How do you get in touch with it? Taking every day to do your spiritual work, to keep your channel open and keep your light up. Keep your light up. To lift yourself up. You know, many of you, how many of you read Daily Word magazine? Well, I'm going to be joining you starting January. I'm writing 3 a month. So I've already written my January and my February. But it's a wonderful way to take these thoughts and then to move with them and not just stay with the words of them, but to the literality of it, but to move into the spiritual nature of it and do that spiritual work. You know, when Lynn and I moved here, I came here and I had 48 hours to rent a house. I mean, we had everything having to go a certain timing. And that morning, I got up and I meditated and I did my affirmative work and I opened up my channel, and I thought it was going to be real easy to find a place, but every single place was just, ugh. I mean, it was just depressing to think about living in some of these places. And then there was this one place, and it was fantastic. It was palatial, and it was gorgeous, and it was wonderful. And, oh yeah, it had mold in the basement that was really bad. Like black walls of mold, but you know, it still was. And after looking at all these other things, I was in kind of the attitude of, let's do it. So I called this, I found the perfect place, and it was really near the church, and it was just the perfect location. And she's very open and she's very intuitive, and she said, no, Greg, that's not the right place. You know, it's right on a busy street. The kids can't go out and ride their bicycles, and it just doesn't feel right in the mold. It just doesn't feel right. And I was kind of, you know, I've been working hard. I've been looking. It's time. You know, no. So then I came here, and Betsy let me use her computer. And I looked, and there was one place. We went there. I looked at it. Now here, this one was a little bit smaller. It was smaller than we've been thinking about. Ooh, smaller. That's not what I had in mind. But it was the right place. But then this was Lynn's turn, because it's like, well, how are we going to fit all our stuff in there? The truth is that everything that we needed to fit in there, we could. Everything else we had to let go of. And because it was just the right size, we're not on top of each other. It's not crowded, but we're there with the kids. It's just really good with computers and stuff, you know. We're there. We're able to, where nobody can go off and hide somewhere. We're always able to be together, and it's brought us together as a family. So know when to hold them, when to fold them, allowing yourself to take advantage of the window of opportunity that presents itself, and trusting and trusting and trusting. There is an implicate order, just as there is on that playground. You will be guided, and things will happen, and it won't. You say, well, how am I going to know? How am I going to figure it out? You won't figure it out. Don't try to figure it out. Do your spiritual work every day. Do your spiritual practices every day, and then let go into it, and know that things will be brought to you. There's a lovely story about a novelist named Karen Kingsbury. She lives in Tennessee. She's sold, 10 million novels. But she wrote an article that I was reading about that was quite uncanny. When her father was alive, her father's favorite song was "Have I Told You Lately That I Love You" by Rod Stewart. And he was not a popular music kind of guy, but he used to tear up listening to this song. And any time that he had something to express to the family, they took family trips together, they were a very close family, he would always say, Rod says it better than I can, and he would put it in letters, and it was really his thing, so much so that when he finally made his transition, when he finally died, he asked that it be placed on his gravestone. Have I told you lately that I love you? And it was right there. Some uncanny things started to happen after he died. First thing that happened was very soon after, she took two of her kids, went to go see two of them in the school play, and on the way out she said to her husband, "Oh, I wish Dad was here." And they turned on the car radio, and there was Rod Stewart singing that song. Then they went to I believe it was the Bahamas. I said Jamaica at the first service. It was the Bahamas, and it was just a lovely family time. It was the first family vacation without him. And so they were feeling the sense of loss and the sadness, and it was so beautiful one day, and this steel band was playing all island songs right outside their balcony, and she just said out loud to the family, "Oh, I wish Dad was here." In the middle of the song, they switched to Have I Told You Lately That I Love You by Rod Stewart on steel drums. But it was the perfect time. Then something really amazing happened. She had reached a certain point in her writing career as a novelist where she was offered an incredible contract in New York City. And she went there with her daughter and her son-in-law, signed the contract, and she sits there walking along on the high, what's it called, the high path or the high trail, which is basically the elevated railroad that turned into a park, and now people are biking and walking along. It's very beautiful. And they're overlooking the Hudson River, and she just signed the contract, and she was just talking about her dad and saying, oh, I wish he could be here, I wish. And she actually prayed, oh God, let Dad know that I love him. And they're trying to take pictures of themselves with the Hudson River behind them, doing kind of like that. And a guy walks up and says, oh, can I take your picture? And yeah, sure. He was kind of dressed nicely and everything. And so he took their picture and everything. He said, God bless you, and went on down. And the daughter said to the mother, did you hear what he said when he was ready to take the picture? She said, no. He said, I'm usually on the other side of the camera, but it's fun being on this side. What did he mean by that? She looked at the guy and went, wait a minute. And she went after him and she said, excuse me, but can I ask you a question? He said, yes. Are you Rod Stewart? And he said, well, yes, sometimes I am. She said, no, seriously, I really need to know. And can I tell you a story? And she told him the story. And he started sobbing, and he gave her a big hug. And he said, you have made my day. Now, what are the odds of that? It was at that moment. These are the things, now they happen all the time. We don't recognize them. We don't have the eyes to see. But we can get ourselves more and more into the flow of these things. In relationships, in employment, in all those outer things, but also in our inner spiritual growth. You will be given the opportunities that you need in order to take your next spiritual step. I'll never forget how I got into my relationship with my mentor of many years, Dr. Mary Allen. I had just come from a really dreadful meeting. And I was so shaken up that when she said, I have a certain process, do you have any questions? It's a question and answer process. I just kind of unloaded what was going on. Now, I never would do that otherwise. But she then, for the next several years, became my mentor. It's because I was open in that moment. And so you'll find yourself in the right situation, the right place at the right time, knowing what it is you're supposed to do. But there is a timing to everything. And know that although there are no lost opportunities in spirit, know that although you will have restored to you the year that the locust is eaten, when you have, when you move forward, you'll have many opportunities. There are times when things are optimal. And if you're open to it, you'll get great support. When I lived in my first church in Los Angeles, I lived a half hour from the church. And the church office hours ended at 3 p.m. And at about 3:15, if I left, I'd get home in a half an hour. But if I waited till 3:20, it would be an hour and a half because of the way that the highways were. I had a window of opportunity. I could move with it. I could get into the flow of it, or if I held back, I would have another opportunity later on. So, and I usually would just go and eat and putter around and wait till 6 o'clock, and then I would go again. Be open and receptive to your divine opportunity. Be open and receptive, and the way you do that is by, first of all, letting go of the things that are encumbering you from the past. If there's some old opportunity that you feel regret for, it's time to let it go. And that 7-step method that we have outside of Fellowship Hall on those sheets of paper is one of the best ways you can do it. I've shared so many stories about this, and I could share so many, but it's basically writing down and then releasing all of that old energy so that you can move forward, so that you can get into the flow of life, so that you are no longer held to the past. Because you can't move forward if you're stuck in the past situation. You have to be willing to move ahead. Well, now what about the situations where you're not supposed to act? Where you're supposed to wait. Know when to hold them and when to fold them. When it is that you're supposed to wait. You will know that as well if you get into this quiet, if you listen. I remember in the church that Lynn and I served for 7 years in Florida. They had a school there, and it was a very prominent church, had some very well-known people in it as parents, but the one thing that it lacked, and we were losing some students to, was it didn't have a sports field. There was just no sports field. The land next door was swampland that was on a lake, and you couldn't possibly build on it. And besides that, the people that owned it had some kind of grudge against the church, which we never once could figure out or found out what it was, but it went back years. So they would never answer our requests, and, you know, as far as like wanting to sell the land in order to get a sports field. Well, then one day the parents came to us from the school and said, an Assembly of God church has just bought that land. We thought, oh, that's it, it's over now. But they were going to build a church on it. And what they didn't know is you couldn't build on that swampland, but you could make a sports field out of it. So the parents, without our knowing it, went to the Assembly of God church and they quoted them a price for the land that was 3 times what they paid for it. And the director of the school said, no, this is not right. When it's right, it will be right. And we're going to trust that it's going to be right because that land is ours. I know it's ours. I could feel it. And everybody could sense that. So we just waited. We waited. We waited. A year and a half later, they came to us and sold it to us for what they paid for it. But the interesting thing is that by then, there was a foundation that said, we're going to pay for half of it. And when they heard about us holding in faith, said, no, we're going to pay all of it. And so all the money that we would have spent on the land raised from the, you know, Chris Everett paid for the tennis court, and Pete Rose helped to pay for the softball diamond, and all the different people got to contribute, and the whole thing worked out with no effort whatsoever. But divine timing is everything. Be open and receptive, and if something doesn't feel right, you just feel blocked, trust that. Know that under divine timing, under grace, you will be guided as to what you're supposed to do, and you don't push ahead like Judas, but you also don't hold back like Peter. You move with it, you flow with it, and you trust. They did a study of CEOs, and they asked the CEOs all kinds of questions, but the number one statistically shared thing among all CEOs in this study in the United States was they all trusted their intuition. That was the number one thing. They all had an intuitive sense, and they trusted it, and it was the most important thing among them. But they had something else that they shared. The number one thing that they regretted most of anything else was that they didn't listen to their intuition sometimes. And so this, you think about it, it is a natural part of life. It is a practical, pragmatic part of life. Being in the flow of life, in your employment situations, in your relationship situations, in every situation. You know, in your employment situation, sometimes that means you've got to let go of what you thought your idea was. You know, we get locked into ideas. This is who I am. This is all I'm going to do. I'm Peter. I'm in this box. But you sometimes have to let it go. I remember about 30 years ago, I had always told everybody I would never be an associate minister. Never be an associate minister. I was always going to have my own church. I had no interest in that whatsoever. But I knew it was time for me to leave. I was in Hawaii. I'd been there 3 years. I knew it was time for me to leave that church, and I wanted to come back to the mainland. But I was sitting on my balcony, and I was meditating. When in a very deep meditation, what came to me was, let go of all your pictures. Let go of all your pictures. What pictures are those? I went to work. I came back home. The answering machine light was blinking, and it was the senior minister of a church saying, you know, I can't get it out of my mind. I know you wouldn't possibly want to be an associate minister. It just isn't you. But just let's call me up and we'll have a laugh over it. And it turned out my grandmother, she hadn't been diagnosed yet, but she ended up dying. And I got to be there with her in that area for those 2 years, bonding with her, be with her as she's going through hospice. And all of that worked out perfectly. Also, it was great for my development in order to heal and to develop in other areas that I hadn't even known about. So sometimes you've got to be willing to let go of your pictures, the things that you hold on to as cherished pictures, and that's why you got to do your spiritual practices, because it raises your vibratory rate that you can separate out from all that stuff that you're holding on to, all those things that you think are so important to you that this is just the way it's going to be. It means you got to get out of that stuckness. You know, they call that stuckness homeostasis. Homeostasis is that beneficial aspect of every cell, every organism, every organization that wants to keep stability. It has value. But history is filled with individuals and organizations and countries that try to live from the past, stay in the past, stay stuck, and refuse to move forward. And that homeostasis can be a debilitating factor if it's not balanced. So you've got to know when it's time to move with faith, to move with a sense of grace and ease. But it means you've got to develop that intuition. How do you develop that intuition? You take the time to open up to it, to keep your light up, to keep your level of vibration up, and then also to ask the questions you need to ask. I was sharing a moment ago about the question and answer process in Dr. Mary Allen, and this is back there on that table. Use this technique, which is a journaling technique, to ask the questions, to go into a space of I don't know, and then to move forward to receive the guidance that you need. Many of us are just plain stuck, though. We just got to get off it. We've got to move forward. And one of the things that I'm going to invite us to do, and I did this last week, but I feel like I should do it again this week. There's this Prospering Power of Love brochure. I want you to get it out. And we're going to do the prayer treatment in here again, because it's time for us to move out of our complacency and into a new consciousness. And I'm going to be teaching a class on this Tuesday night. I invite you to be a part of that. We're going to really get into goal setting and move forward with some of these principles. But I want us to take this as our closing treatment. So I'd like you to join with me, and we're going to begin with My Life is Blessed. Together? My life is blessed with infinite abundance. The abundance of God is my infinite resource. I am now in the flow of abundant blessings. Good is now flowing into my life through unexpected avenues. God is actively at work in my life, blessing me. I open my mind to receive my good. I expand my capacity to give and receive my good. Wonderful, positive, surprising things are now happening for me. With God as my source, I am amazed at my rich abundance. I give freely and fearlessly into life, and life multiplies and returns my gift many times over. Many rich blessings now manifest in expected and unexpected ways. God is now providing for me in wondrous ways. I am grateful, and so it is. Amen. Now, I just want you to open up and feel the vibratory shift. And know that whether you use this affirmation treatment or something else, every day you can shift your energy and open yourself to receive. Thank you, God. And so it is. And now is the time we take a deep breath and we let it out and we flow into this now moment. And within this now moment is all the timing that we need. And so setting down all papers that we have in our hands, and perhaps opening our hands in our laps, we move into this time unencumbered by outer distractions. And whatever the choices that seem to be before us, we are in divine timing. We are in the flow of divine timing. We feel ourselves lightening up and opening up to the divine flow. We are in the right place, in the right time, doing exactly what is ours to do. And as we take another deep breath and we let it out, we feel the opening within us to divine guidance and flow. There's no effort in this. There is just a trust. We know that there are windows of opportunity that present themselves to us, and divine timing. And without any concern whatsoever. We know that we are in the flow of divine timing. Simply by claiming it. I am in the flow of God's perfect timing. We can let go into a sense of grace and ease, of divine order. Opportunities are made known to us. And when there is a window of opportunity, our inner eyes are open, our inner ears can hear. And when these windows of opportunity make themselves known to us, we move and flow with them. And we take advantage of the opportunity as it presents itself. And so if there is something that we're looking at in our lives, in a relationship or job, housing, or just a spiritual step we have to take, what is that step that is there in front of us, for which divine timing could be everything, where a window of opportunity will present itself? And what we're going to do during our time of silence is to feel ourselves opening up inside, in that heartfelt space of trust and surrender and peace. Opening up the window of opportunity. Opening up to divine timing. As we grow lighter, we feel the greater spaciousness and upliftment as our window of opportunity opens and we step through into the light. Step through into the light. Step through into the light. And this window of opportunity blesses and benefits all. We know that it is a divine opportunity, a spiritual opportunity, because it benefits and blesses all. And so we are in that great fountain that is flowing, and we can let go into it, we know, with great peace, assurance, and anticipation that what is ours, that we step forward through the window of opportunity into our good, that we are guided when it's ours to just hold and be, and when it's ours to move. We trust that inner sense. Our inner eyes are open. Our inner heart is at peace. We listen, and we can feel this whole universe supporting us, vibrating, tingling, lifting us up, moving us, giving us the guidance we need. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. I give in anticipation of my good, and I receive abundantly. That's going to be our affirmation we use. So here's our time of offering. I give in anticipation of my good, and I receive abundantly. Together. I give in anticipation of my good, and I receive abundantly. And silently. And again aloud together. I give in anticipation of my good, and I receive abundantly, and so it is.